Myself Palak and I am a student of Tarapur School Agrico. Welcome to the second episode of Teen Voices Collective, and today we are diving into the unique intersection of studying abroad and the role of diplomats in shaping global relations. Today we have Koyesha Mukherjee as our guest. She is an international diplomat at the UK government, a passionate young leader, and also the visionary founder of the Leading Youth. Ma'am, I welcome you to the Teen Voices Collective.
Thank you so much.
I've been very excited about this conversation, so let's begin.
Sure.
So, firstly, आप एक जमशेदपुर girl है and you have completed your schooling from Carmel Junior College. So, please tell us something about your school life.
Sure. So, yes, like you mentioned, I have started and finished my schooling at Carmel. So, that's 14, 15 years of schooling at Carmel Junior College in Jamshedpur. Started from nursery and finished with my class 12 board there as well. I think I have very fond memories of Jamshedpur and I love the city. This is where my roots lie. This is my hometown. My family still lives here. So the best part about my school life was all the fantastic memories that I made as any school student really. All my friends and all the fantastic memories of also just being at home and being looked after by your parents where you don't have to worry about, paying your bills and rent that I do now that I'm working. So I think those childhood days are the most cherished and there's nothing compared to school days. And I would absolutely suggest every school student tuning into this conversation to please enjoy all the days that you have at school because you're never going to be able to get these golden days ever again in life going ahead.
So, you have pursued economics major from Calcutta University and then from the University of Manchester. So, was economics your favorite subject in school?
Absolutely. Economics was and has been my passion. I took up economic science in class 9. So instead of taking up computer science, I made a switch to economic science. And there was a bit of discussion there among teachers there because I was always a good student in the sense that I was ranking first in class and the teachers had a certain expectation that if you're a good student, you should take up computer science. But I managed to kind of break that conception and take up something that was a new subject, but I really wanted to give it a try and see how it feels. And then the first day into the class, I realized this is what I want to do ahead, and this is my passion, and this is what I want to specialize in going ahead. And so that's what I did. In class 11, I took up commerce, again, just keeping my main focus as economics. And then after I completed my boards from Carmel, I also decided to pursue my Bachelor of Science in Economics from Loreto College, University of Calcutta. Again, I think pursuing passion for young people is something that I would 100% recommend, and it's so important. I know that a lot of young people nowadays feel confused because they are unable to identify what their key area of passion is. But for me, I was definitely fortunate to identify that at a very young age, at the age of 14 or 15 when I first took up economics, and I knew that this is what I want to dedicate my life to and build my career in. So that's what I pursued and that's what I followed, and with God's grace have been successful enough to excel in this field as well.
That is very nice. So you are a diplomat, but many of my friends and juniors would like to know what exactly a diplomat is and how can we become one?
Sure. So diplomacy is a fine art, I would say, of managing people's skills as well as relationships. And the reason why diplomacy is so important, especially for young people, is because it tests your communication skills. And only when one has that set of skills that helps you build those relations, connect with people, network with people, can you be a good diplomat. And now I'm saying this in a retrospective fashion because I've been in this job for the last 6 years working with the UK government as a senior policy advisor. But this is something that I also had to work on because it's not something that came naturally to me, or maybe I didn't identify when I first started with the job that this is something that I could be good at. So it's obviously skill sets that I've built over time while being at work, while receiving a lot of trainings in different soft skills, etc. And to make it more specific, I'll give you an example. So my day-to-day job basically involves interacting with other country governments and working closely with ministers, managing different stakeholders, and also working with local businesses and farmers to make sure that any policy that we are creating works to the benefit of consumers as well as the businesses that the government is serving. So it's a very interesting and confidence testing role, because when you're working with highly qualified people in the room like ministers who are well respected, it does test your confidence and your communication skills quite a bit. So which is why I said it's been a journey of growing my confidence, learning on the job, and testing my skill sets in practice. And that's the true test of diplomacy, really, just being patient and giving everything a chance in terms of, even if you're not sure about how you're approaching a certain meeting or a presentation, it's also about kind of going with the flow, obviously doing your research, preparation, study, and making sure that you're bringing your 100% to the room. And that only comes with also being aware about the global context, like what's going on in the world, what's the latest news, your general knowledge.
Okay, so why did you choose that specific university for your higher studies?
So I was after a very specific course that I wanted to specialize in for my master's. And when I decided to study abroad, I made a short list of universities that were offering that specialized course. So there were about 4 or 5 different universities in the UK that I applied to. And out of all the ones that I applied, obviously I got a couple of rejections from one of my dream universities, which is Oxford University. I didn't make it at that point. And then University of Manchester is where I got my offer from. And their department, the Global Development Institute of Manchester, that offers the course in development economics and policy, is top rated globally. I think it stands number 2 in the world for development studies. And so given the obviously student feedback, global rating, professors' research as well, because that's something I did look up before I decided to pursue my studies abroad. What kind of research does the university do? What have the professors who are teaching that particular course, what have they published? What do their papers look like? Are those topics that I'm interested in? Do they resonate with my passion area and topics that I would like to write my research paper and dissertation on? After it did tick all those boxes is when I decided to go ahead with this particular university and pursue my course. Also because Manchester is a very international university, and that's something that I appreciated about the culture of the university as well, because it definitely emphasized the fact of making the most as a student there and interacting with a lot of students in my class, for example, who were from literally different countries of the world. And I think I was probably only one of the Indian students in the class, and out of a class of 25, 30 students, everyone was representing different countries. And I think studying in that kind of a setting where you get to incorporate diverse perspectives and you learn to be inclusive as well of those diverse perspectives is again a really important life skill that goes beyond your academics and teaches you more than your course and gets you prepared for the real world.
I'm glad to hear that, and your parents must be very proud of you. So, I would like to know that what's the difference between the education system of India and abroad?
That's a very good question. And I would say there is definitely a lot of difference. But at the same time, I would say there's a lot I've learned from each side, whether it was growing up in India, completing my schooling and undergrad here, versus pursuing my master's and career in the UK. The major differences, I would say, is the fact that in the UK, there's a lot less emphasis on rote learning. There is more emphasis on practical learning and group discussions and more practical based assignments where you have to refer less to textbooks and put a lot of more emphasis on actually understanding those concepts and why certain things are being mentioned in terms of the theories. So it was more about the way I approached learning in my master's was sitting with my group of friends and discussing with them, why is this happening, why is that happening, which is not something I did in India, because it was more secluded, and I felt like there was more of a competition in India, because you're studying by yourself and you're trying to match it with your friends, like, oh, I have finished this much of my portion and I don't want to share what I've studied. So I think people were a lot more collaborative in the UK, which is what my earlier point also mentions about the diverse perspectives. And that's just the nature of, I think, studying with a bunch of students who do not come from your background and have a different kind of upbringing and culture, which is really opens up your mind in many ways as well, right? Because there are alternative ways to learning that you approach that you may not have thought about earlier as well. So that's what happened to me. I think I became more open in terms of my approach to learning. And I think I always have been a very studious student growing up in school and in college here. But there I also learned that having a life balance along with studies is also really important. And so enjoying your time as a student there, because it's a limited duration, it's just a 1-year course. And within that, also enjoying with your friends. And I love traveling, so that's something I've done massively while studying there as well. Obviously, given that it's a 1-year course, it's also quite hectic. So that's one difference with India, because I know that most courses in India for their masters at least are a couple of years long, whereas in the UK, they are only 1 year long. Another important feature that stood out for me in my experience of studying abroad was the UK's emphasis on critical analysis, which is not something I had developed in India. So whenever we were given an assignment, our professor gave us the task of saying, critically analyze this paper written by a Nobel laureate in economics. And my first reaction was, how am I supposed to critically, analyze someone who's won a Nobel Prize in economics? Because obviously my knowledge is nowhere close to those authors. But that was definitely a challenge and something I did struggle with when I had to approach those assignments, because it tested my way of thinking. It tested my way of approaching and writing assignments, which is not a level of challenge I faced in India, because things were easier and you could just reference papers and, again, the rote learning and give your own bit of analysis, and that would be okay. But I had to take it a level up when I was in UK to be able to, match my peers and meet the expectation of the professors, because I feel like the quality of research there, again, was very different in the UK. Having said all of that, the good part about having done my undergrad in India, at least, was the fact that I was more well-versed with the basic theories and concepts of economics. And so during the masters, again, because it's a very short-packed 1-year course, the professors don't really have the time to teach you the basic concepts. So they expect that you know everything from the basics, and you just have to then understand the more advanced concepts and go ahead with it. And so there was this one day in the class when my professor asked a technical question on one of the topics that he was teaching on macroeconomics, and nobody could answer it. And I remember putting up my hand and answering that question very confidently, because that was something that was taught to me in my undergrad course in Loreto in Calcutta. So that was something that I definitely would consider as an advantage, because I feel that the syllabus and the way the curriculum was designed for undergrad in India definitely worked to my favor when I pursued my master's abroad, as I was more clear and confident with my basic theories. That definitely helped me secure my distinction in my master's degree ultimately.
Okay. So India में अभी बहुत सारे students हैं who actually want to go abroad for their higher studies. So, but they are unsure about leaving their home country. So, what would be your suggestion?
The best way is to be clear about what you want to pursue and why you want to pursue it. Is that something that can make a difference if you pursue that course abroad? And like I said, instead of just relying on the course itself, the best way to decide about study abroad is also to weigh your other options in terms of how do you want to work, where do you want to take your career. what do you want to do after finishing this course? Where do you see yourself? These questions are really important because whatever you decide to do while studying abroad is shaping and setting the stones for your future career as well. Which is why weighing those benefits and understanding your own preferences is really important. The other important thing I would suggest is for students not to get swayed away by peer pressure or what the latest trend is in the country, because although studying abroad might be a very fashionable thing or something that a lot of people aspire to do,
Yeah.
it's not something that you have to do because all your friends are doing. You should obviously consider your personal circumstances, your personal preference, and what is it that you want to get out of studying abroad.
It seems that we have learned a lot of things since a very young age. So, I would like to ask that what's the biggest lesson that you have learned in your whole journey?
Well, the biggest lesson I would say is that of resilience and perseverance. Because however good a resume or someone's life might look in terms of all their achievements and studying abroad and working abroad, I'm definitely grateful for all that experience that I've had. But there's definitely been tough days and days where I felt like giving up. And also, life abroad can get really lonely. And I feel like that's something that's not spoken about a lot by people who spend a few years. I think in my first year, I didn't realize it that much because you're a student and there's so much going on. You're trying to settle into a new country, adjust to a new weather, adjust with a new set of friends. Your life transforms completely. So you're always on your toes and there's no time to, actually be by yourself and reflect on how it's going, what you're doing. But it's only when I started working after I completed my master's in Manchester, when I moved to London, and I was by myself and I didn't have any friends, and I was only 22 when I first got my job with the UK government. So I didn't have friends in my age group, and that was quite a difficult phase to get used to being comfortable by myself, to be able to adjust to a life where you don't have friends to spend your weekends with or go out for shopping with. So I think those days did, I think, mentally affect me quite a lot. It did get really depressing. And so I think what helped me was the fact that I did learn to be resilient, because those were unique scenarios I hadn't ever faced before, even when I was living in India. So I think just being by myself taught me a lot, taught me the strength, gave me the strength to be resilient. And even on the days when work was tough or challenging, persevering through those challenges and remembering that you're serving a wider goal. It's the fact that it was my first job and I'm building my career, and I just couldn't give up everything because I felt like doing it. I had to give it some time to kind of adjust and get used to the flow of things. And I think building that patience and that strength definitely played a big role in the 7 years that I've now spent abroad.
How do you balance and manage your stress? Because you must be feeling stressed sometimes, right?
I mean, absolutely, it's a multitasking game, because managing your own business along with a full-time job, or even taking the risk, I would say, to start something new with no grants or financial support and doing everything by myself is definitely not easy. So it is definitely a testing time, because I'm new to this as well, right? And I'm trying to learn from the process as I go ahead with this. It does get stressful in the sense that when you're working towards some tight deadlines, or I've got a client request and I need to figure out a formal way of responding to them and offering a good package while accounting for the fact that they are a student and I know there are financial constraints. So there are quite a few factors that I need to account for as a young entrepreneur now. So like I said, it's a learning journey. It's something that I'm definitely enjoying in the process. So even if there are a few stressful moments, I think what outweighs those stressful moments is the fact that overall, this is something that I've always wanted to do. And I'm giving back to the society, to India, and to my hometown by doing something that is hopefully changing a lot of lives and helping them get the guidance that I didn't get when I studied abroad. So with that broader objective and bigger picture in mind, I tend to survive those stressful times. And like I said, my parents' support is obviously really helpful. So when I'm stressed, I get on a frantic call with my mom, and then I'm immediately better the next moment. So that's what helps me as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, and I think I learned a lot from it. I would also like to know that what are the qualities you think are essential for a diplomat, and to gain success in this field, what are the subjects we need to pursue?
So, starting with qualities for a diplomat, like I said, relationship building, stakeholder management, communication skills, influencing, negotiation, basics of leadership and management. These are really the core skills to stand out as a diplomat, because when you imagine a good diplomat, they are someone who is calm under pressure, can handle stress well, and can also communicate the key message to the other person really clearly. So there are a lot of great skills that are put into test in this profession as a diplomat that can really hone your personal skills as well as develop you professionally. So understanding why leadership skills are important from a young age, which is why it's really essential to be more confident as well as feel more empowered in successfully delivering your job as a diplomat. And in terms of courses that one can pursue to be a diplomat, it's a great field to be in. It's really enjoyable. You get to see and understand how global politics works, which I think is a fascinating world, and definitely something that I know that young people of today are quite interested in. So if diplomacy is your key area of interest, then the key thing is to pursue your passion as well as build those life skills that are going to help you to be a good professional diplomat.
So I wanted to know that how can we identify our strengths as well as our weaknesses, and how did you identify your strengths?
So the best way to go about analyzing your own strengths and weaknesses is to do a bit of SWOT analysis. And for those who don't know what SWOT stands for, it's the strength, weakness, opportunities, threat. It's basically charting out in a bit of a table format on a piece of paper, understanding what is it that you are good at. And if you're confused about what you're good at, maybe think about what is that one area of your life, or maybe multiple areas of your life, where you constantly get good feedback from either your friends, your colleagues at work if you're working, or your teachers or parents. So for example, someone might be telling you, you're really good at the way you're speaking, and I think your oratory skills are something that makes you stand out. Then you know that you're good at public speaking, and that's what qualifies as your strength category. Similarly, for weaknesses, you might want to think about what is that one area where you constantly get constructive criticism from your teachers or your parents. For example, someone might be telling you you're really bad at time management, you're always turning up late, or you need to work on being a bit more disciplined with your time management. Then you know that that is your kind of weakness in terms of your qualities. And opportunities and threats are more about understanding your weaknesses translate into opportunities, right? Like if you know you're bad at time management, then obviously you want to find ways of being better at it and improving. So those become your opportunities as well. And threats are areas where you're trying to think about some really bad weaknesses that could translate into bad habits. For example, if you're consistently waking up late every morning, then that's a threat to your daily schedule, right? Because that deteriorates your productivity and it ruins your entire schedule for the day. So that's the kind of mapping that has worked for me personally, to understand what are the key skills that are my strengths versus weaknesses, which are the areas where I can improve, and which are the areas that I can pursue as as a hobby or as a side hustle, and make them my career going ahead as well. So those are about skills, but obviously you can use the same exercise for if you're trying to chart out your technical skills as well. Am I good at maths? Am I not good at maths? Is that something I want to make a part of my career, or keep it very distant from any sort of career I pursue? So for example, if you're taking up a career in analysis, then obviously you're dealing with numbers and spreadsheets all the time. And I know that's something that keeps away a lot of people from pursuing careers in policy that I'm doing, because I also deal with a lot of spreadsheets and numbers, which is something I enjoy. Maths was my favorite subject in school, along with economics. So for me, it worked out fine. I love numbers, but I know that it can be a weakness for many students in school. So if that's something you're not comfortable with, totally fine. Think about other subject areas that you can instead focus on and build upon that.
Okay, so lastly, I would like to ask that if you could go back in time, what advice would you like to give to your younger self?
Very good question. So looking back, I think the Koyesha who was under 15 was very underconfident, and I was always a very shy person, introvert. I couldn't have imagined myself going up on the stage and talking to hundreds and two hundreds of people that I do now when I participate in youth leadership dialogues in London and other international forums that I participate in. So the only advice I would give to the younger Koyesha is to believe in herself and understand that things will fall in place, and the fact that I don't have to be timid or shy of opportunities. The fact that if I don't allow myself to go out there and avail the opportunities in terms of extracurricular activities at school, participating in debates and quizzes and going up on the stage and participating in dramatics, I could have done more of that to build that confidence, because confidence is really the key to lead a successful life in higher education, studying abroad or working abroad in your first job, or working wherever for that matter, and pursuing your career. That's something that I lacked in. And that's mostly because I probably didn't believe in myself, and I didn't know how to, feel empowered, which is why I've set that as the core mission of the Leading Youth now, where I want young people to feel more confident about themselves and realize that they can really be good at anything they set their mind to. And if you have the right support system, the right guidance, mentorship, and skill sets, nobody can stop you to be the young leader in your own field. And that's my biggest advice, not just to my younger self, but to every young person tuning into this conversation today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I really enjoyed talking to you and I loved the way you answered all the questions. I'm glad that we could make it happen. So that was it for today. मिलते हैं एक नए एपिसोड में एक नई शख्स के साथ. Thank you.